Should I say yes and sit back down? Obviously, no, right, okay. The Green Party support all renewable technologies, regardless of their type. However, we do think we have to be quite pragmatic with it, and we want to make sure that the wealth created from these energy productions is kept in the local area and is kept in public hands as well. So at one point we were almost the only party that opposed Tidal Lagoon because it was solely for profit, but after a hell of a lot of research and a hell of a lot of conversation, we have reached a conclusion that we should be in favour of it. It's something that doesn't get mentioned at Hustings very often, the environment, especially at this general election. What's the point of having all of these lovely policies that all of these candidates are mentioning if the sea levels rise and we haven't got Brim Mill anymore? I mean, let's be quite realistic. We do have to take a pragmatic attitude, and yes, we're in favour of all renewables. I didn't really need to say any of that, you were convinced anyway.
Yeah, I used to have responsibility for adapting Wales to climate change, the Environment Agency and Welsh Assembly, basically building flood defences across Wales, and also working with councils in Scotland building on floodplains. So renewable energy is very close to my heart, and I support offshore wind farms and supported the lagoon, subject to a lot of searching questions about whether it will dig up toxic waste, whether it will have various impacts on our wildlife and flood protection. But basically, if it passes the health checks, I will be supporting it in terms of its environmental and economic benefits. Clearly, renewables, by definition, are the best way forward because they aren't polluting the atmosphere, and they are literally renewable, so they aren't a scarce resource. So it's something in Wales with our wind and our water and our land we should encourage.
Well, we firmly believe in the development of renewable energy. In fact, I often wonder there's a competition between us and the Greens as to who is greener. But quite frankly, Wales has got a wealth of natural resources that can be exploited for the benefit of us to produce energy, but exploited in such a way that does not destroy those resources. I believe the Tidal Lagoon is an iconic project, provided it is properly managed and provided that the whole environmental considerations are brought to the fore. And we firmly believe that wind farms should be encouraged, preferably out at sea. I know people will live within very close proximity of mountain ones, and yes, there are disadvantages to them. But things like the hydroelectric schemes and developing and so on, they all provide renewable energy that do not harm the environment. And those are the two things that are key, that they don't harm the environment and that they benefit our society.
Under capitalism, renewable energy is only going to be taken up when it's profitable. If it's not profitable, it's not taken up. At the present moment, the capitalist system is locked into fossil fuels. And they intend burning all of them fossil fuels and polluting the planet in its way, right? Until it becomes unprofitable. And then they'll take up renewable energy or some other kind of form of energy, whatever there is. Right? But don't expect, right, them also to do a thorough environmental impact and also an environmental assessment when it comes putting these renewables in place, because they won't. They'll still take the narrow, most profitable route. Without that, you can forget about it. And the socialism, all the renewable energy will take up because it won't be costing.
Thank you. It's a shame UKIP aren't here tonight, actually, because one of their candidates recently raised the profound question of what happens when renewable energy runs out. I've been in favour of renewables since I was a student at Aberystwyth in the 1970s, when what was known as the ecology movement was prominent as to promote the work of the Alternative Technology Centre. It's not just about global warming. I think this is the best form of energy that we should use for all kinds of reasons, but obviously global warming now makes it a life and death issue. We have to maximise the energy we produce from this and move towards a carbon neutral situation as quickly as we can. This is an incredibly serious situation. It's the greatest threat facing the world at the moment, and we have to take real steps constantly to improve the levels of renewable energy that we're using.
think Ashley mentioned earlier the idea of 1 million climate change jobs. Now that was a pamphlet that was produced by trade unionists and environmental campaigns. And it's well worth reading if you get hold of a copy, because it shows how even on the basis of existing technology, you could begin to solve a lot of the problems of climate change, of pollution, and at the same time how you could grow economies and provide steady and productive employment. Unfortunately, the biggest barrier to the implementing of the recommendations that's in that report is the profit motive, which dominates our economy. It's yes, we want the biggest possible investment in renewable energies, publicly owned, publicly controlled, democratically.
So the tidal lagoon is absolutely fantastic. It's something that's being championed by Stephen Crabb, Secretary of State for Wales and Conservative. He is pushing this forward, and we're really hopeful that it's going to have really positive benefits for Swansea. He is really focused on inward investment in Swansea. Something that you may not know, actually you know this bit, we are a net importer of energy to this country, the whole of the UK. And we do need to do more. We need to look at all forms of energy. Under the Labour government, we have ended up with 3 weeks worth of energy. That's it. So if something goes really wrong in Russia, we could be in big trouble. We only have capacity to store 3 weeks worth of energy. So when you hear of the trouble that goes on in Ukraine and in the Middle East, etc., just be very cautious, because this is what we've been left with.
I'd like to call on Alex again to ask a second question. Do you need to see it? Or?
It was basically just, what is your party's position and public line on Europe and having a referendum? And if you don't believe there should be a referendum, why should the general public be allowed to decide?
Thank you, Alex. For clarity, this means a referendum on membership of the European Union. So I would like to call on Geraint Davies to answer that question first.
Yeah, I only think there should be a referendum if there's a proposal in a new treaty to transfer more powers to Europe, and there's no such proposal. Basically, the idea of having a referendum is already making multinational companies think twice about investing in Britain. They're hedging their bets. People like Tata Steel, people like Ford and Bridgend, people like Airbus say to me that if we have a referendum and that we're out of Europe, they'll face tariffs between 5% and 100%. And they'll sack thousands of workers in Wales alone, and obviously hundreds of thousands across Britain. Basically, the Labour Party's position is we stay in Europe so that we provide a safe haven for investment, whether it's from China or India or whatever, platforming into the world's biggest market in an English-speaking area, which is everyone's second language, in a stable democracy with a low tax regime. And it's completely most of the time we want to have some sort of ridiculous referendum.
Thank you to Geraint Davies for answering the question. I would now like to invite on Harry Roberts to answer the question next.
Thank you. Apart from immigration, I think this is the issue where I also have a massive argument with UKIP each time they're here, so once again I'm glad they're not here. We're relatively open-minded about the idea of a referendum, apart from one thing. It is accepted by all the main parties of the economists that Wales is the net financial beneficiary from being a member of the European Union. More money comes into Wales than goes out to Wales in taxes. So the position for Wales is actually the opposite financially as it is for England. That is why our party has called for a veto for each of the 4 countries of the United Kingdom separately as to whether or not we should leave the European Union. We see some advantages in the southeast of England, the banking capitals, but that's got absolutely nothing to do with us, or our people, or our towns, or our villages, and our society. We are a net beneficiary and we're in favour of staying into it. If it comes to a referendum, we will campaign hard for staying into it, but we think that Wales should have its own voice in saying yes or no.
Thank you to Harry Roberts. I would now like to invite Emma Lane to answer the question.
the only party that will give the British people a referendum on whether we stay in or whether we come out of Europe. There has been many, many discussions, many, many arguments over the last few years about whether or not we should be in Europe. And quite frankly, the Conservatives believe that we are in it for the common market, but we aren't in it to be controlled or governed by the bureaucrats in Belgium and Luxembourg. So vote Conservative to ensure that you get an in-out referendum. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Emma Lane. I would now like to invite on Ronnie Job to answer the question.
Well, we'd characterise the European Union as a boxers club, which has been behind driving down of workers' terms and conditions, a race to the bottom of workers' terms and conditions across Europe. It's directly used agency laws to undermine locally agreed trade union rates of pay in a number of countries. And in the event of a referendum, we would call for an exit from Europe. But inside or outside Europe, unless we fight for socialist policies, then the future for the UK is one of crisis, whether we're in Europe or not. And so, the fight against cuts, the fight for socialism remains the same either way.